Palaces are not just buildings. They are symbols of power, wealth, and grandeur, where every stone keeps a secret of the past. They rise above cities, shine with gold and marble, become the hearts of empires and the stage for fateful decisions. Today, we will show you 15 of the most magnificent palaces in the world, each of which can amaze the imagination and transport you to the era of kings and emperors. Vienna holds many architectural masterpieces, but one of them stands out especially. This is Schönbrunn Palace, a splendid monument of the Baroque, the summer residence of the legendary Habsburg dynasty. The history of the palace goes back to the 17th century. Its halls remember emperors and empresses, diplomatic receptions, noisy balls, and secret conversations by candlelight. The symmetry of the facades and the luxurious gardens create a feeling of harmony and grandeur, as if the palace were created to amaze the imagination of everyone who enters its gates. Particular attention is drawn to the carefully planned parks. Living hedges form intricate labyrinths. The avenues are adorned with statues, and elegant fountains can be seen everywhere. Walking through these gardens, it is easy to imagine how royal families rested here on warm summer days, enjoying music and the fragrances of flowers. Inside, the palace also astonishes. In total, Schönbrunn has 1,441 rooms, and each has its own history. The Mirror Gallery is especially famous. It was here that little Mozart once performed before Empress Maria Theresa and the young Marie Antoinette. Every hall is a separate masterpiece. Gold, frescoes, marble, and crystal create an atmosphere of unprecedented luxury. Schönbrunn is not just a museum or a tourist site, but a symbol of an entire era when art and power were inseparable. This palace still remains one of the brightest reminders of the greatness of the Habsburgs and of Vienna, which for centuries was considered the cultural capital of Europe. Scotland is famous for its rich history, and its castles seem to open before us the pages of the past. Among them, Edinburgh Castle stands apart, a majestic fortress rising on the Castle Rock crag and seeming to soar above Scotland's capital. Its location has strategic significance. The height and rocky walls gave the castle's inhabitants an enormous advantage. From here, one could see any approaching enemy, while the fortress itself remained practically impregnable. That is why, during the First and Second Wars of Scottish independence, the castle repeatedly changed hands, now to the English, then back to the Scots. Today, Edinburgh Castle has turned from an arena of fierce battles into one of the country's main tourist attractions. Year-round, tours, historical events, and celebrations are held here, attracting millions of travelers from around the world. Edinburgh Castle is not just a fortress. It has become a symbol of national pride and one of the most photographed places in Scotland. It takes only a glance from the city streets and your heart stops. The stern walls against the sky, towering over Edinburgh's picturesque horizon, create a picture impossible to forget. Strolling through the castle's Yow's halls, or admiring its majestic view from afar, you feel the breath of history and the strength of tradition. Edinburgh Castle is the eternal guardian of Scotland, preserving its spirit and grandeur through the centuries. When it comes to castles, most people imagine medieval fortresses of England, grim bastions and aristocratic manors. But Spain also guards its masterpieces, and one of the most impressive is the Alhambra. Located in Granada, the Alhambra began as a small fortress. But with the coming of the Nasrid dynasty, it gradually turned into a true palace that astounds the imagination. Interestingly, the building was erected on the ruins of ancient Roman fortifications, as if weaving together different eras and cultures. In the year 1333, the Alhambra officially became a royal residence and turned into a center of power under Ferdinand and Isabella. History even keeps the legend that it was here Christopher Columbus received consent for his great voyage to the New World. The architecture of the Alhambra is a genuine jewel of Moorish art. Every arch, every carved column seems to breathe the refinement of Islamic architecture in Spain. Among the most famous halls and courtyards are the Court of the Myrtles, the Hall of the Ambassadors, and of course, the renowned Court of the Lions, where water streams through stone figures, creating a magical atmosphere. But it is not only the interiors that impress. The gardens around the palace turn it into an oasis. In spring, everything here is awash in greenery and flowers, and it feels as if time slows down. The Alhambra is not just a palace. It is living history, in which different cultures and civilizations harmoniously intertwine. Although the Ottoman Empire has long remained in the past, its grandeur still lives in architectural monuments. And one of the brightest symbols of Ottoman luxury is Dolmabahce Palace, located on the shore of the Bosphorus in Istanbul. This palace once served as the administrative center of the empire and the residence of the Sultan. Its interiors astound the imagination. Gilded chandeliers, handmade carpets, silk fabrics, precious ornaments. Everything here was created to emphasize the wealth and might of the Ottoman state. In size, Dolmabahce is the largest palace in Turkey. It occupies an area of more than 1.1 acres and includes 285 rooms, 46 halls, 68 bathing rooms, and 6 traditional hammams. Walking through its halls, it is impossible not to feel how thoroughly every detail has been worked out. To marble staircases. On the palace grounds, there are also 3 majestic entrances: the Gate of the Sultan, the Gate of the Treasury, and the gate leading directly to the Bosphorus. All of them have been preserved in excellent condition, and passing through them, you seem to be transported to the era of imperial might. Dolmabahce Palace is not just an architectural marvel. It is a testimony to the ambitions and wealth of an empire that sought to show the entire world that its power and culture remain unsurpassed. When speaking of masterpieces of Eastern architecture, India has a special symbol that cannot be confused with anything else. This is Hawa Mahal, known worldwide as the Palace of the Winds. Its elegant facade is tinted in rosy hues and adorned with the most delicate honeycomb-like carvings. At first glance, it resembles a fairy tale castle, straight from the pages of an Eastern story. The palace was erected in the year 1799 and became a true wonder of engineering of its time. The most astonishing thing is that 953 windows are cut into its walls. Each of them is fitted with stone jolly screens. They allowed the women of the royal court to observe the life of the city, the festivals, and the processions in the streets, while remaining invisible to prying eyes. Through these windows, cool breezes entered the halls, thanks to which the palace, even on scorching Indian days, remained filled with freshness. Hawa Mahal is built entirely of pink sandstone, which gives it a special beauty and uniqueness. The interiors are finished with marble and decorated with ornamental elements that highlight the greatness of Indian craftsmen. But the true magic begins at night. When the building is illuminated with golden glow, it turns into a mirage, as if floating in the air. Hawa Mahal is not just an architectural monument. It is a symbol of the genius of Indian architects, created to unite beauty, refinement, and functionality in one form. Today, it is considered one of India's most enchanting sights, and everyone who sees it with their own eyes forever keeps this Eastern wonder in memory. Sweden can also boast a rich heritage of castles and palaces, each of which holds a piece of royal history. But a special place among them is occupied by Drottningholm Palace, a remarkably well-preserved monument that has rightly been included on the UNESCO World Heritage List. Built in the 17th century, this palace still remains the official residence of the Swedish royal family. Its uniqueness lies in the fact that despite daily tours for tourists, the monarchs quietly live in the southern wing of the palace, remaining in seclusion. The grounds are so extensive that the presence of visitors does not interfere with the royal family in any way. Drottningholm Palace rises on a picturesque island in the middle of Lake Mälaren, revealing delightful views of the water and nature. Its interiors look as if historical dramas could still be filmed in them. Carved ceilings, paintings, gold and marble create an atmosphere of true royal luxury. But perhaps the palace's greatest pride is its magnificent gardens. The Baroque parks here astound with perfect symmetry and harmony. In one of the corners, the Chinese pavilion is hidden, giving the ensemble an Eastern charm. But there is another jewel, the Old Theatre, preserved since the year 1776. Its uniqueness lies in the fact that the stage is still equipped with the original machinery for changing scenery, a true wonder of the 18th century. Drottningholm Palace is not only the home of monarchs, but also living history, embodied in stone, wood, and the greenery of gardens. It seems to transport guests to the golden age of the Swedish crown, allowing them to feel the grandeur that has outlived the centuries. Italy also has a palace that amazes with its scale, for in the 18th century it was conceived as a magnificent residence capable of competing with the palaces of France and Spain. The scope of Caserta is truly overwhelming. The area of the palace exceeds 35 million square feet, which makes it the largest palace in the world by volume. There are 5 floors, more than 1,200 halls, and also 24 state apartments. Once, life inside was in full swing. The royal family, numerous servants, cooks, gardeners, all this created the atmosphere of a true city within a city. The interiors are decorated with frescoes, sculptures, and marble. Every hall here is like a work of art, as if created to emphasize the power and status of the rulers. But the palace's true pride is its parks and gardens. The vast grounds, strewn with fountains, sculptural compositions, and green alleys, turn a walk through Caserta into a separate journey. Even a fleeting glance at the palace is enough to feel its grandeur. From the first step, it seems that you have found yourself in a separate world where everything is subordinate to luxury and harmony. Caserta is a symbol of Italian Baroque, a memory of the golden age of monarchies and of how the ambitions of rulers knew no bounds. Spain can also boast its symbol of grandeur, the Royal Palace in Madrid. This is not just a residence, but a true monument of architecture, whose history goes deep into the centuries. On the site of the current palace, there stood a fortress as early as the 9th century, but the modern building was erected in the 18th century after a devastating fire. The new palace exceeded all expectations. It covers about 40,000 square meters and has more than 3,400 rooms, which makes it the largest palace in Europe by area. The interior decoration astonishes. The richest collection of furniture, exquisite ceiling frescoes, works by great masters such as Goya and Caravaggio. Every room is a living picture where art neighbors history. A special impression is made by the throne room, with its luxurious ceiling painted by the Italian artist Tiepolo, as well as the royal chapel with its majestic altar. No less interesting is the collection of 18th century tapestries and the enormous armory, which is considered one of the most complete in Europe. The palace serves not only as a museum, but also as an active residence. State receptions and official ceremonies are held here. The royal family, however, prefers to live in the more modest Zarzuela Palace, but the royal palace remains the main place for ceremonial events. The space around the palace also impresses. The Sabatini Garden, with neatly trimmed hedges and classical statues, creates an atmosphere of comfort and grandeur at the same time. The Royal Palace of Madrid has undergone restoration more than once, while preserving its historical appearance. Thanks to this, it still looks as if time has no power over it. Today, this palace remains a pride of Spain and its culture. It is not only a symbol of the monarchy, but also a place where the past meets the present, reminding us of the country's greatness. In the very heart of Beijing rises a place that for centuries remained closed to ordinary people. This is the legendary Forbidden City, the largest palace complex in the world, a symbol of imperial power and the grandeur of China. Its construction began in the year 1406, and the result exceeded all expectations. The complex covers more than 180 acres. Inside, there are nearly 1,000 buildings and about 1,000 halls. This is not just a palace, but a whole city where the emperors of the Ming and Qing dynasties lived and ruled for centuries. The Forbidden City is a true jewel of Chinese architecture. Enormous gates, ornate roofs with gilded details, symmetry and severity of forms. Everything here underscores the grandeur of imperial power. The most significant building is the Hall of Supreme Harmony, where the most important ceremonies and celebrations were held. No less impressive are the imperial gardens and the pavilions dedicated to various rituals. Today, the Forbidden City is not only a historical symbol, but also the largest museum in China. It houses more than 10,000 works of art and artifacts covering different eras. Among them are exquisite clocks, imperial garments, unique sculptures, and old paintings. Walking along its lanes, you feel as if time has turned back. Every hall, every column reminds you of those who determined the fate of an entire country. The Forbidden City is the embodiment of Chinese imperial might, a symbol of culture and traditions that live on to this day. The next palace on our list is a true embodiment of luxury, scale, and absolute splendor. Istana Nurul Iman in Brunei is the official residence of the Sultan, and its dimensions amaze the imagination. The palace spreads over an area of more than 2 million square feet. Inside is a whole world, 1,788 rooms, 257 bathrooms, a huge mosque capable of accommodating 1,500 people. And that is not all. There are 200 stables for ponies intended for polo, 5 swimming pools, and a garage designed for more than 110 cars. Construction of the palace was completed in the year 1984 and cost nearly $1.5 billion. And that is in the prices of that time. Today, its value has increased many times over. The building is adorned with golden domes, luxurious roofs with traditional curves in which Malay and Islamic architectural motifs merge. All this makes the palace a symbol not only of wealth, but also of the country's cultural heritage. Although Istana Nurul Iman is the Sultan's personal residence, it is also used to receive high-ranking guests from around the world. And 3 times a year, after the end of Ramadan, the palace opens its doors to the people. Festive feasts are arranged here, and thousands of people come to share the joy with their ruler. To receive an invitation to this event is an incredible honor. For the people of Brunei and for tourists, it is not just a chance to enter the palace, but an opportunity to feel part of a great celebration. Istana Nurul Iman is at once the Sultan's personal refuge and a place for grand state ceremonies, a vivid symbol of grandeur and hospitality. This palace looks as if it came straight from the screen of Disney's animated film, Aladdin. But no, it is real. And you can find it in the picturesque hills of Sweden. Enormous and shining, it seems created for a fairy tale. Rumor has it that this palace belongs to the Swedish royal family. However, the most amazing thing is that it is used only once a year. Just imagine, to have such beauty at your disposal and come here only once. Incredible, right? Hardly anyone could voluntarily leave such luxurious chambers. And it is not only about its size, although it is one of the largest palaces on the planet. It amazes with its combination of style, coziness, and grandeur. Every tower, every column, every arch seems to breathe wealth and perfection. This palace is a true symbol of a fairy tale come to life. And though its doors open rarely, it remains a dream for those who have at least once seen its majestic outlines against the backdrop of the Swedish hills. Asia holds many splendid palaces, and one of the most brilliant without doubt is the Grand Palace in Bangkok. This is not just an architectural marvel, but a symbol of Thailand, a place where history and religion are woven into a single whole. The palace rises on the bank of the picturesque Chao Phraya River. Its construction was completed in the year 1782, and since then, it has served as the residence of the kings of Siam. For comparison, it is only 10 years older than the White House in the United States. Although the modern royal family does not live here permanently, the palace to this day remains the heart of the most important state ceremonies and royal rituals. Walking around its grounds, you seem to enter another world. Expertly planned gardens, carefully manicured lawns, gleaming roofs, and multicolored spires. All this produces an overwhelming impression. The bright tiles on the roofs shimmer in the sun, and the buildings themselves are adorned with traditional Thai ornaments that are almost impossible to encounter anywhere else. A special place in the palace belongs to the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. Here is kept the most revered statue in the country, a small but priceless Buddha carved from a single piece of nephrite. Pilgrims from all over Asia come here, and the atmosphere of this temple literally takes your breath away. The Grand Palace is not only an architectural jewel of Thailand, but also a living part of its spiritual heritage. It personifies the culture, faith, and rich history of the country, into which every visitor is immersed from the first steps. Russia can also boast its architectural masterpieces, and one of the brightest among them is the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. This is not just a building. It is a symbol of imperial might, and at the same time, a key monument of Russian history. The Winter Palace was built in the Baroque style, according to the design of the architect Bartolomeo Rastrelli, and, since the year 1732, became the official residence of the Russian emperors. Its facade is painted in green and white tones, adorned with gilded details and sculptures, and its overall appearance immediately underscores its grandeur. Inside the palace, there are more than 1,500 rooms, and you can easily get lost, passing from one hall to another. Today, it is part of the State Hermitage, one of the largest and most famous museums in the world. The Hermitage collection impresses canvases by Van Gogh, Rembrandt, Leonardo da Vinci, Renoir, Monet, and many other great masters. It is so vast that exhibits are placed not only in the Winter Palace, but also in neighboring buildings of the complex, the small, old, and new Hermitages. Among the museum's treasures is the famous peacock clock, an astonishing mechanism of the 18th century, where a mechanical bird spreads its tail and comes to life before the eyes of spectators. The Winter Palace witnessed key events of Russian history. In the year 1917, it was here that the storming took place, marking the beginning of the October Revolution. This event became a turning point in the fate of the entire country. The palace interiors are no less than its exterior. The magnificent Jordan staircase, state rooms with golden decorations, marble columns, and carved ceilings still astonish the imagination. The building also endured severe trials during the Second World War. After the destruction, a large-scale restoration began, and thanks to this, today, the palace once again shines in all its splendor. The Winter Palace is not only a repository of art, but also living memory of the grandeur of Imperial Russia, of its dramatic history and cultural heritage. Every year, millions of tourists come here to touch the past and see the grandeur that has survived the ages. It is impossible to speak of palaces and not recall Versailles, one of the most famous and luxurious palaces in human history. This symbol of France and its monarchy is rightly considered the embodiment of absolute power and artistic grandeur. Initially, Versailles was just a hunting lodge of the French nobility, but in the 17th century, King Louis XIV decided to turn it into a residence that would become a demonstration of his power. Thus, on the site of a modest structure, a palace arose that was destined to enter history. Versailles astonishes not only with its halls, where every room is adorned with works of art and gilded details, but also with the famous Hall of Mirrors. This is one of the most impressive rooms in the palace. The walls are covered with mirrors that reflect the light of hundreds of candles, creating an atmosphere of incredible splendor. It was here that lavish balls and the most important state ceremonies were held. But the palace is not only the halls. The enormous gardens of Versailles are a separate world. They were created by the talented architect, André Le Nôtre. The strict geometry of the avenues, green labyrinths, dozens of fountains and sculptures, all this seemed to underscore the grandeur of the French monarchy. The Latona Fountain, the Apollo Fountain, and the Grand Canal, stretching for almost 2.5 kilometers, became the main adornments of this royal park. In addition to the main building, the complex has more secluded palaces, the Grand Trianon and the Petit Trianon. They served as places of rest for the royal family. The Petit Trianon, for example, was the beloved refuge of Marie Antoinette, who arranged it to her own taste. Versailles also played an important role in world politics. It was here, in the year 1919, that the Treaty of Versailles was signed, which ended the First World War. Thus, the palace became not only a symbol of luxury, but also an arena of global historical events. Today, the Palace of Versailles remains one of the most visited attractions in the world, receiving millions of guests every year. It is not just an architectural masterpiece, but a living legend in which history, art, and the grandeur of France are interwoven. When it comes to symbols of the British monarchy, the first thing that comes to mind is Buckingham Palace. Located in the very heart of London, it is not only the official residence of the king, but also a true symbol of the British crown. Its dimensions impress. The palace has 775 rooms, among which are 52 bedrooms for members of the royal family and guests, 78 bathrooms, and 92 offices for work. In addition, there are more than 180 bedrooms for staff, dozens of service rooms, kitchens, laundries, everything so that the palace is completely autonomous. A real, small city inside a city. The history of Buckingham Palace began in the year 1703, when the building was constructed as a private house for the Duke of Buckingham. Later, it was purchased by King George III, who gave it to his wife, Queen Charlotte, and it was then that the palace received the name the Queen's House. In the 19th century, it was expanded and transformed by the architects John Nash and Edward Bloor, giving the palace the majestic appearance we know today. The neoclassical facade made of Portland stone has long become a calling card of London. It is on the famous balcony of Buckingham Palace that the royal family traditionally greets the people during important events. Many ceremonies and rituals are connected with the palace. The most famous is the changing of the guard, which every summer takes place daily and draws crowds of tourists. In other seasons, the ceremony is held every other day. Part of the staterooms of the palace is open to visitors in summer. Tourists can see the ballroom, where state banquets are held, the White Drawing Room, the place for receiving official delegations, as well as other magnificent rooms filled with paintings, gilding, and crystal chandeliers. Buckingham Palace is surrounded by gardens covering 40 acres. These are the largest private gardens in London. Royal receptions, summer parties, and gatherings with thousands of guests are held here. During the Second World War, the palace was subjected to bombings. However, the King and Queen did not leave London, showing that they shared the fate of their people. This act strengthened the palace's symbolic status as the heart of the country. Today, the value of Buckingham Palace is estimated at approximately $3 billion, which makes it not only a historical and cultural monument, but also one of the most expensive residences in the world. But something else is far more important. The palace remains a living symbol of the British monarchy, a place where history, diplomacy, and tradition come together. Each of these palaces is not just walls and halls, but living human history frozen in stone. They still amaze with their scale and grandeur, reminding us that the dreams of rulers were always grand. And now a question for you. Which of these palaces would become your palace of dreams?